was reading something about, to the effect that the root mass of the old vines is kind of a key to...
Well, and the depth of the roots. I mean,
Yeah.
what happens with the old vineyards, and this is what makes them important, is their roots go so far down. You know, they'll have because most of these vineyards, in fact, all of these vineyards are dry grown. Not all the woodcutter Shiraz vineyards, but certainly all these ones. There's no irrigation, and so in dry years they have access to subsoil moisture that younger vines can't get to. They also will get access to all sorts of minerals and so on, deep down the subsoil and the bedrock. You know, so you just always got to make wines with a deeper depth and concentration. And we make virtually all of it, particularly our Shiraz vineyards. We have the old vineyards, and then whether it be on my properties, because I have a couple of 200 acres of vineyard now, but also buy fruit from independent growers. So whether it's on my vineyards or my growers' vineyards, we'd have old vine Shiraz, and then we'll have taken cuttings, because we've never had phloxera, so we just get a four bud cutting and plant it out in the spring. So there's no rootstock. So we have the woodcutters' vineyards are basically all planted next to their parent vineyards.
Okay.
And so you can put them next to each other, and you can taste those wines. It's obvious it's the same dirt, obvious it's the same piece of dirt and same terroir. But it's also obviously you're looking at father and son, you know what I mean? The older vine material is always more concentrated, deeper, you know, than the younger vineyard material.
And they're all bush vine?
Not Shiraz, no, Shiraz on
No,
trellis.
Shiraz.
Shiraz is not erect enough to be grown as a bush vine.
Okay.
Grenache Matara is, in fact I've got 20 acres of Grenache Matara planted 10 years ago below my house on my home property, and that's all bush vines.
Okay.
But because I think a bush vine for those varieties on a trellis, it's very hard to keep the yield back because you've got to keep quite low yields to get the concentration.
Okay.
Whereas Shiraz, it's not erect enough, it just falls over. But we just have a single cord and single wire trellis, it's pretty straightforward.
Okay.
Nothing fancy. But oops, once again, you've got to remember in the Western Barossa we're pretty old soils lacking in nutrient and so on, so the vineyards aren't that vigorous. It's not like we need to have some fancy trellis and all that sort of bullshit with, you know, lifting up stuff to get, you know, vertical shoot position or all that sort of stuff. We don't need it because the vineyards are pretty low in vigour.
Okay. Is it showing great?
I'm not convinced that this might not be slightly corked, unfortunately. I'm pretty sure it is. I'll show you anyway, but I'm pretty sure it is.
I'll grab the other one.
Do you have another bottle of that? Would you mind shooting out and
I'll go grab one.
just have a look at it? We'll come back to we'll get another bottle. I'm pretty sure it is. You got it?
Yeah.
It happens. Bloody corks. You know, bit by bit we're going to screw cap. With home rates you all the way up to the Strewy now and screw cap. But the sad thing is with the more pricey wines, you know, people still like to see a cork.
Yeah.
And luckily we don't see as much TCR as we used to. Corks are getting better, but the trouble is we're never going to get a perfect cork. So.
And can you just talk, well, he's going to get another bottle. That's a good introduction a little bit to just talk about screw caps and how you feel about them as opposed
Well, I use screw cap on everything. I mean, I'm old-fashioned the way I understand that people liking the cork, because I like a cork too, but I also dislike corked wines, and not even corked wines. You know, the trouble is with corks is even if you get, I mean, that's affected by TCA, but if even in one that's completely clean, every cork is different. You know, and so you drink old wines, and you always hear people using the term, "Oh, that's a good bottle." That's not such a good bottle. What a f***ing shame that when these wines were bottled 30 years ago, you couldn't guarantee that everyone's going to be a good bottle. When I drank a bottle of, you know, what's considered the greatest Syrah ever made was the 61 La Chapelle. And I drank a bottle of it in Hong Kong. I actually paid for it. I won't tell you how much I paid, but it wasn't cheap. And it was a good bottle, but I had two other bottles, lucky that I hadn't paid for, that weren't good bottles. So it took 10 years and three attempts of having 61 La Chapelle, considered one of the greatest 10 wines made last century, to actually get one that was a good bottle.
Yeah.
And the other two went cork, they'd just been let down by the cork. So that's the sad thing. Unfortunately, you know, corks are like fingerprints, no two are the same. I personally don't believe that you need a cork for a bottle of wine to age. I think that's just bullshit, that people who want to use corks and make that excuse. I think that's absolute rubbish. A bottle of wine will age quite fine with a screw cap. Screw cap's the only drawback, if you like, is the wine can be a bit reductive. You know, even when this one first opened, it was a bit reductive. It blows off almost instantaneously, but it can be a bit reductive. But God, give me a reductive wine any day, the one that's been oxidised or tainted with TCA. But as I said, the problem is it's you know, I pay a lot of money for cork. These corks are, you know, $1.50 US a cork. You know, they're not cheap corks, and so we don't get a lot of cork tape. But here we are, you get one. You know, it's just the way it is.
Yeah.
Not much you can do about it.
How far back does the screw cap as a closure go in Australia? Like, what are the reference points to see how?
Well, the trouble is, it's a bit like here in the US. Screw caps were first used on cheap ones because it's a cheaper form of closure. So they've been given that reputation of being a cheap closure for cheap wines. Screw caps, I don't know how long they go back, it'd be a long time. Got to remember they were invented by the French in the 1920s. I mean, it's actually a French still, it's a French invention, which is kind of funny. I know companies like Yalumba and Penfolds and so on have done trials that'll go back probably 20, 30, 40 years now, I think, with Yalumba. So they're showing that the wines are fine, you know what I mean? And there's 10 cork and 10 still, and out of the 10 cork, there might be 1 or 2 that are TCA affected, but then the other 8 are all slightly different. There's bottle variation. The 10 under Stilben are all the same. Yeah. And it's funny, you know, I talk to French winemakers. A lot of them are very, very dear friends of mine, and they say, "Oh yeah, but that's the beauty of wine. You know, that they're all different." I say, "How the fuck does that make sense? It's not the beauty of wine that your wines are, you know, have been tainted by the closure." And let's face it, you know, cork was cutting edge technology. You know, after we got past the Romans sticking a bit of, you know, bit of cloth and some, you know, wax on it or something like that. But at the end of the day, you know, cork's so far out of date, it's not funny. I mean, you know, if you think about it, sticking a piece of, you know, bark of a tree and something to seal it, if you think about it logically, it's just ridiculous, really, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, actually, when you put it that way.
But at the same time, here I am opening a cork, I put in the wine, so, you know. But hopefully it'll come. What we really need to do is have some of the big guys, particularly in France. I mean, unfortunately, and particularly in the emerging markets, let alone more mature ones like here in Australia and so on, is that we need the guys on the high end of you know, Bordeaux and stuff like that, First Growth and those sort of guys. We need them to. I'll give you a little rinse. Yeah. So I'll just check that this one's not corked too. That'd be my luck. No, that'd just be my luck that it's two in a row corked.
In the trials that you spoke of, was there any evidence because of the screw cap? I've heard that people say sometimes there's a slower pace of evolution.
Of course there is. Of course there is. Yeah, I mean that's absolutely inevitable if you think about it, because there's no air getting through. Right. So, but is that a bad thing? I mean, I don't, you know, personally to me, that's how it should be aging, shouldn't it? Without any exposure to oxygen. I mean, that's why we put wines in wood. It's partly to get that slow oxidative process of getting osmosis through the oak because it's porous. Yeah. But once you bottle it, I mean, surely you don't want air getting to it. I mean, that's the, you know.
And in an even pace, slower and an even.
Well, yeah, that's the other thing. Well, I think not at all, but because there's already oxygen. See, that's the other thing. If you're concerned about that, you just leave a little bit more dissolved oxygen in the wine when you bottle it. I mean, we're sophisticated enough with our bottling now to do that. And we actually do that with the juvenile and the woodcutter Shiraz simply because we sell a lot of that by the glass. So that just helps the wine being a little bit more approachable and reduces that reductive character very early on. The other wines we don't bother because, you know, these wines, obviously people drink them when they're young, but normally if people are drinking these wines, they're at least decanting them, if not selling them. You know. I assume this one's alright.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine.